Amad Diallo has finished last season strongly and started this pre-season with a goal as well. He's got a lot of people wanting him to be the permanent right winger for Manchester United. So we're going to look at who he is, what he brings, and what he does differently to the other options at that position. And basically decide, is it time for Amad to start for Manchester United? Is it Amad's time? Ronaldo Brown, how are you?
I'm great, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Jay?
I always say I don't think enough people ask him it back when he asks.
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean?
How are you, Jay?
I'm good. How are you? It's the more important thing.
I'm mad for it.
Nice.
I'm mad for it.
Yeah.
Let's just start with a few stats
really
then.
good.
Madness.
I like that.
Because Amad Diallo, 22 years old, which is obviously a young player, but it's not frighteningly young. He's not a kid by any means.
Yeah.
He's someone that has been but he's been at United for 3 years.
Yeah.
Like, we signed him when he was 18, I think. He turned 19 a couple of weeks after we signed him, and he's 22 now. So he's not someone that is sort of Kobbie Mainoo young. He's not a teenager anymore. He's, well into his 20s. He, last season for Manchester United, played 471 minutes in total, which is about 5 and a bit games, 5.2 games for Manchester United in total minutes. He's someone that, on social media, the clamour is there for him to start games. He scored a lovely goal against Rangers the other day. People are talking about him as though he's, well above Antony, well above Sancho in the pecking order.
Yeah.
But just to start things off, Jay, do you think there's almost like a weird, I don't want to say like illusion, but almost like the stats don't kind of match the sort of hype and the talk around Amad? I'm not saying the hype as in he's not good enough, but like people talk about him differently to what we've actually seen numbers wise, maybe.
You think like slightly romanticised?
A little
like
bit.
That, like where he's, he's put on this pedestal that perhaps his performances haven't warranted. I understand that idea.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say it's a criticism, it's not his fault.
No.
And I think that what often happens at Manchester United is the player that isn't playing is the answer to our problems. So whether that's Donny van der Beek, whether it's Jadon Sancho when he wasn't playing, even Antony at one point, people were saying, he should get more minutes, whatever, and then obviously he's fell off a bit of a cliff. And I think that's what's happening a little bit with Diallo, where people go, okay, we need to see more of him. But I do feel like there's a player there, and I think he's shown it, because he hasn't had many opportunities, but I think he's shown enough to think, okay, he deserves more game time. He deserves an opportunity. We've seen a lot of Antony, and we know he isn't good enough, or I certainly do. We've seen a lot of Sancho, and we know that he hasn't taken the opportunities he's been given, and now it's become barely tenable at Manchester United with Jadon Sancho. Amad Diallo's had, 491 minutes last season. Yeah. And during those 490 minutes, he scored a goal, to quote my friend here, which hit like crack when he got that winner against Liverpool.
Yeah,
it was the greatest goal of the season. Maybe Mainoo's against City was up there. Yeah. But in a sheer moment, I don't think I've experienced anything like that as a United fan at Old Trafford since sort of the peak of the Fergie era. So that is going to make fans love you even more, and I'm guilty of that myself. But when I've watched him, I've been impressed, and I don't feel like he's really had the chance he deserves, because even the FA Cup semi-final against Coventry, he came on, was playing well, and he's moved into midfield after like a minute, and you just think, like, give him a chance. Antony's had his chance, Sancho's had his chance, even the likes of Garnacho and Rashford have had their chance and haven't always taken them, if we're being brutally honest. Give Amad Diallo a chance, especially on that right-hand side, where we have had a little bit of a merry-go-round. His performances, even though they've only been brief, warrant him being given more opportunities, in my opinion.
Ronnie, talk to me about sort of what he is as a player, because I know you like to look at what someone's bringing to Man United. Yeah,
if I'm not even rebuttaling, but based on what Jay said, it is very true. I think that's just fandom in general, where when there's a bit of adversity or a team's playing a certain way and we're not happy with performances, we quite often look to the players that aren't playing and wonder if they can offer something different. I think sometimes that's just what leads to the clamour. It's almost like Antony's playing awfully. Garnacho better on the left than he is on the right. We've not even tried Mason Mount out there, and it almost seemed as everyone, in terms of like a wide profile, you've got Jadon Sancho as well, who probably even he prefers to play on the left. It was like, why don't we play Amad? Why don't we try him? Why don't we start him? Why don't we give him opportunity? He's obviously got the ability. He was heavily rated in Spain, and not in Spain, in Italy before he came to England as well. And I think he had that adjustment period that he needed, which sometimes it does take players quite a while. He went to Rangers, found it difficult, and then he went to Sunderland and had an amazing loan spell in the Championship, which is in a way, in a translatability wise, it's one of the better leagues that you can look into in terms of tapping in for talent, and it's not an easy league to perform in. And one of the criticisms towards Ahmad was he probably from a physicality standpoint that he needed to grow up a little bit, and I think he did that. And then Tony Mowbray spoke glowingly of him, said he was probably one of the better players that he's managed. And unfortunately, last season he didn't get the opportunities that we felt like he should have because of his injuries. I think he had an injury issue, and then when he came back, it seemed as though people were getting the hump with the fact that it looked like Ten Hag didn't rate him. We saw Omari Forson getting minutes ahead of him, starting ahead of him as well, and that looks even more baffling now. Well, not even sure where he's gone. Yeah. And Ahmad seems to be shining. But to me, I think there's always been a quality player in Ahmad. He's got the technical qualities that you want. He's probably arguably the most technical player on the team. So he helps with that ball retention side of it. He offers something different to the likes of a dynamic Garnacho and Rashford. But to me, I feel like since Sunderland, and even when watching him I know it's one game in pre-season, but even at times towards the end of last season, I think he's gotten a little bit of a yard of extra pace now. He looks like a little bit stronger. Looks like he's grown into himself a little bit. And I'd argue he almost looks to be someone now that is the only winger that we've got at the club that's able to have that kind of technical ball retention side of his game, but also can be a fullback 1v1. He can go both ways. And as you see, he's got a great strike on him as well. I think Ahmad looks promising to me. And in 22, he's not crazy young.
No, not at all.
But he's not by any means the finished article either. And I've always been a fan of Ahmad. I always thought there was a player in there. And I think it's just verging on that time now where he's going to start showing it. And if he does, he ends up saving United having to go into the transfer market again for the third time in a row after Sancho and Antony and look for another right winger, because I think to me he's better than Antony, and I'd get rid of Antony before I even think about moving Ahmad on. And I know there's talks of Ahmad probably getting a new contract soon enough, and I think he's shown enough to earn it.
I think they saw that in the Liverpool game. We mentioned the winner. It's funny because I was looking at the clip, the watch along that you did, and I think just when Ahmad gets that ball, you say it's not the greatest ball to him, and then he scores the winner, and then you fast forward and play Liverpool in the league. Antony's in that almost identical position. He gets played through late on to score the winner, and he doesn't. No. And I think that you can almost, I know that's only one opportunity, but it just shows there you've got a player who's just not quite what you think he is, and a player who potentially is. And that's why I think it's time to give him that chance.
Yeah, and if you look at him, like you said, and I said at the start, he's 22, but he's played 39 top flight league games in his career. That's ridiculous. Like, I think Rashford had done about triple that by the time he was 22. 39 is so few. He's played 13 in one season at Rangers, 12 at United, 1, 8 in another, and then 2 and 3 in back-to-back seasons at Atalanta. That's it.
We talk about personality a lot on this channel, about signings and personality, and are they the right fit for Manchester United, and can they cope playing for Manchester United? This kid has been through a lot. There was talk, and I don't think it was stood up, but there was suggestions that he'd been taken against his will, almost been trafficked at one point. There was all these rumours going on about reports that he'd been brought over to Italy, like under some sort of a cloud, which is obviously is horrific. That he's having to even deal with him
and his
situation.
Brother came over at the same time. I think he was about 14 when he came over. Look into that at home. It is quite, one of those things where you go, that doesn't feel right.
No. Then he goes to Atalanta. I think he played 60 minutes before he gets a big move to Manchester United. The pressure that entails as well. He's at United, like Ronnie says, he gets a low move. Rangers, not great. I think he didn't even get off the bench, did he? Was it the Europa final? But then he goes to Sunderland, smashes it, comes back to United, takes his opportunities. He seems to be a kid who, despite what's thrown at him, has sort of risen to the top, and he's still there. And I know I'm repeating myself, but I just think that everything about him, for me, says he deserves a chance. He deserves a run in the seat.
This is what's happened with young players, though. If you take a risk, you buy them at 18, 19, they're not always going to set the world alight straight away.
No.
There needs to be that developmental period. There needs to be a little bit of patience. And that's been something that United have struggled with anyone that we've brought in over the past 10 years or so. And we might be able to see the fruits of our labour in terms of taking a risk and a gamble on a talented youngster from another league, allowing them the time to develop and grow, go through hardship, go through adversity and come out stronger at the end of it. And then, who knows, Ahmad could be, next season or going forward, fingers crossed, the answer to our right wing spot.
Yeah, well, let's have a look at the alternatives in that position then, because obviously that plays a big part in this as well. We all know that, a good part of why a player gets a chance isn't just their own talent, but the talent of the people they're up against. Obviously, Garnacho played a lot of minutes there, but it seemed up until about, I think it was like the Boxing Day game against Villa, wasn't it, where we first started to see him out on that right-hand side. He was considered a left winger, and he ended up playing a lot of minutes at right wing because we didn't, Sancho had left and Antony was very poor, and at that time Ahmad wasn't favoured. But I think the idea that Garnacho's got that right wing spot completely nailed down is probably up in the air. The other two options are Antony, who last season made 38 appearances, scored 3 goals and got 2 assists, which is obviously just, in terms of pure output, is clearly not good enough. You mentioned before, Ronnie, about in other videos about his defensive output. It might have been you even, Jay. His defensive output, which is quite sort of helpful in terms of a case for him to play. But just because you track back, that doesn't account for the fact that you've got one goal contribution every 8 games.
I think that element of Antony's game is overrated as well.
Okay.
I've seen plenty of games where he's let the fullback run off him or not worked hard.
He left me on my face in the Wolves game.
I think
because he came on in the Wolves game, and my comment was trying to be kind and saying, well, at least he can keep hold of the ball and help out defensively, and he gave the ball away straight away and Wolves scored.
Yeah. I think the whole he's this extremely hard working player off the ball. I disagree with. I don't think he's. I think that
he was at Ajax. You pointed out Ajax. That was one of his sort of best attributes because his output's never been that impressive in terms of numbers. I think his last season at Ajax was at 8 goals and 4 assists in a team that was absolutely dominating games. Which 12 goal involvements isn't amazing, but defensively he did a lot of the legwork.
If you're a winger at Manchester United, and even without costing him out much that Antony did, and the reasoning behind you starting and playing starts to become, it's because he runs back. That's like the main reason that he's playing. That's when you know.
It's absolutely.
It feels very, very sort of Scouse. He's a defensive attacker.
Yeah, and the alternative there is Jadon Sancho as well, who last season, including his Bundesliga stint, got 3 goals and 3 assists in 24 appearances. 2 goals and all 3 of those assists were for Borussia Dortmund. He's someone that is back in the fold now. Has apologised to Ten Hag. Again, big price tag attached to him, much like Antony. But there's clearly a rift there. There's clearly personality differences between him and Ten Hag. And like I mentioned before, he fancies himself as a left winger as well. Do you see him as too much of an obstacle for sort of Diallo to kind of push past?
Not really. And I think it's almost been like Diallo's was the forgotten man. And let's not forget, at one point, it was Facundo Palestra. Yeah. When Antony wasn't performing, it was like, let's give Palestra a chance. He got an opportunity, didn't really take it. Even though I do like the kid, I just don't think he's quite good enough for Manchester United. Diallo's had a few players in front of him, and yet we're sat here sort of discussing him being given an opportunity for a reason. So I don't think Jadon Sancho is a massive obstacle. I don't really buy into the idea that him and Ten Hag are bezies. I think there's still an issue there. I think it's maybe being a bit, I don't know if convenience is the right word, but they're trying their best just to sort of move forward without sort of, really being happy with one another. So for me, just based on who's the best player in that position to help you win football matches, and for me right now, I'd probably say Diallo. I think the only slight discussion I think could go is if you've got Marcus on the left and Garnacho on the right. I think that works. I do, and I think with obviously Højlund or maybe even Xerxes down the middle, probably Højlund though. That front three I like. But I think certainly your next option, the next in line, if you do mix it up a bit, would be Ahmad.
And this isn't even just off one pre-season game. I thought he looked really bright and sharp in a number of games towards the end of the season.
Yeah, it wouldn't be off the Rangers game. You're right.
Do you know what I mean? And we all said it. And I thought that's why the first game of pre-season that he did play excited me, because I was like, it looks like he's grown into it and he's on the verge of having that maybe breakout season. And it's just the fact that he plays in a position that United constantly are looking to upgrade and having so many misses in the transfer market that it can save us from doing that. And it's also the fact that Amad Diallo's got the versatility where he can even play in the 10 position.
He can.
And give Bruno a rest as well.
Yeah.
I think he's got an element of like versatility to his game that I think quite a few of our wingers don't have. And Garnacho and Rashford are said to be the first like starting winger spots, but there's no reason why Amad Diallo can't perform well enough where he starts being the starting winger and maybe one of them will have to miss out, because when you look at Garnacho and Rashford, they have a similarity in their play style. Whereas Ahmad brings something different.
No, I agree.
Do you know what I mean?
I agree with that because I think as well, you mentioned it earlier, the Europa League, under Erik ten Hag, we've gone far in the cups. We tend to have a good cup run. We've been to 2 FA Cup finals. We've been to a League Cup final. In the Europa, I think I know we didn't do well in the Champions League, but in the first time the Europa went to the quarter final, obviously had that extra couple of games against Barca. There's every chance that United play 50 odd games next season. You're going to need to rotate. I think at one point Garnacho played, was it 30 games on the spin?
Yeah.
That's not great, if we're being honest. He could do with giving players a rest now and again. And if he is going to rotate, if he is going to give other players an opportunity, then Diallo could get his chance. And if he takes it, why wouldn't he start? Because the good thing for Erik ten Hag, just quickly as well, is he didn't buy Garnacho or Rashford. He doesn't owe them anything. No. It's not, and even Antony, who he did buy, I think he's pretty safe now in saying I've made a mistake on that one. So if Diallo's doing well and he picks him, no one's going to question that.
No, absolutely. And I personally, I think now is his time. And also, and I don't want to frame it in this way, and I don't want to seem like I'm being too negative the whole time, but I think it has to be. I think if you're starting next season, you're 23 years old and you've not managed to have more than sort of 10 starts for United in a single season, you're looking towards maybe we move this guy on. I think it has to be now, and personally I think it will be. Right, that's going to be all from us. Let us know your thoughts on Amad Diallo in the comments below. Is it his time to shine at right wing? Are we seeing the start of, I want to say resurgence, it's his first surgence, isn't it? A surge.
Amad Diallo.
Exactly. We'll see in a bit.